Awesome. Well, Alex, listen, thank you so much for taking the time. The reason I wanted to talk to you is because, well, a couple of reasons. One, you look like most guys want to look, so that's a big thing. You don't want to talk to a fat personal trainer, or and I'm really big on anyone living the life they want to live. Like, I'm a libertarian, but at the same time, you don't go to someone who's broke for financial advice. If you want to look jacked, you want to have a personal trainer who looks jacked. And it's funny, we were just talking before we started recording about genetics, and we were saying about you come from pretty decent genetics. I come from a pretty active line, but then again, we're both European, and in Europe, people are just much more active as part of the life. I just actually was chatting to somebody about the daily step requirement. I think it was 20,000 that they say you should do, which is 4 miles. I'm like, how many people are walking 4 miles a day? I don't. If I run, I'm getting my steps in, but that's not every day.
Right. 20,000 is actually at the very higher end. Okay. I'm asking my clients to do about 10,000 steps a day, and
still
that's
2
a
miles.
stretch. That's a stretch. If they get 7,000, I'm happy.
Gotcha.
But what you'll see, if people are not intentional about it, they'll get about 2,000 to 3,000 steps a day.
Okay.
Yeah, it's gotten worse after COVID when, with a lot of people working from home, that made things even worse. So you do have to be intentional. Nowadays, the way everything's set up when it comes to jobs and people working from home and office, commuting in the car, no one's walking anymore.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
And I found myself being very lazy too, especially if I know I've got a busy day and a hard workout. I'm like trying to conserve my energy, which I think is bad. I think just a light walk kind of wakes you up a bit. It's good for your brain. It's good for everything. Good for your mood.
So good for your brain, for your endorphins, and it kind of gets your focus going. So if you're behind the desk, after you put in an hour, 90 minutes of focused work, your productivity decreases after that. So you're almost better off getting up from the chair, removing yourself from that environment, go on a walk if you can, outside if possible. Then you come back and be able to get more work done.
I've totally seen that in myself, and it's so hard to do, especially like you got your task list and you just want to get it done, and if you take a break and you do something else, you're so much more productive.
Yeah, a rule of thumb with that is whenever you start scrolling on Instagram, put the phone down. You kind of stop working, you start procrastinating.
Yeah,
that's a signal.
Yeah,
just put the phone down, go out there, walk, do some jumping jacks, and then get back to work. Another way, during COVID, when really we were restricted from even going outside our houses, I was still training clients online during that time. I would just have them walk during their calls, or get one of those walking pads, and 1 work hour per day.
Yeah,
I would have them do, be on the walking pad. So you got to get creative nowadays, just because, especially in the United States, that's how everything's set up. In Europe, people walk a lot more. Yeah. Everything's a little bit, the cities there are set up a little bit better when it comes to that. But yeah, in the US, you gotta get creative with it.
You just reminded me of when I was in Europe for something. I think I might have been competing at the in Portugal at the Jiujitsu tournament there, and it was a 5-flight walk up, and we were renting a place on the top floor. Man, you go up down 3 or 4 times in a day, you're getting a workout in. I'm like, this is just normal for them, and I'm in shape, and I still feel it, because I'm so used to being in the US where you're so sedentary.
Yeah, you have an elevator for everything. We were in Romania, my family and I. We just got back about a month ago, and I lost about 5 pounds, and I was not trying to. I was eating, had a little bit of alcohol, just having fun. Haven't seen my family in a long time, college buddies, high school buddies, so I had a lot of fun. I was expecting, to see a little bit of a weight gain when I came back. And I remember stepping on the scale the day after we landed, and I lost 5 pounds. They came right back. The weight came right back after, about 2 weeks in the States. But I was shocked. But the amount of walking there, it was constantly about 20,000 steps a day without me even trying.
That's crazy, yeah.
Yeah.
Alex, maybe we'd take a step back. Can you talk a little bit about your background? Because I don't even know, how long you've been into fitness, how long you've been a personal trainer.
Yeah, so I moved to the States about 13 years ago, back in 2012. And with the personal training, I started the immigrant jobs. I started in construction. I was doing demolition for $10 an hour. Then I drove a cab for about 2 years and kind of worked my way up. But during this whole time, I remember right at the beginning after I moved here, didn't have any friends. I kind of started from the beginning, and I was kind of depressed. And really my only activity outside of work was just going to the gym and just lifting weights. That was always there for me. And that always made me feel better about myself. And I remember sitting in the gym and looking around and thinking, I really enjoy being here. I wonder if I could monetize this in a way. If I could just, if I were to pick a job that I, would love doing and they wouldn't feel like work for me, what would that be? And that was like working in a gym. However, at the time I thought, there's no way you can make enough money to support yourself being a personal trainer. I didn't know, because I was new in the States. I didn't know, what the rates were and how it worked out. And then fast forward, I was done with driving a cab. I went to, I was managing properties. I was doing property management for a while. And then my sister's boyfriend at the time, he was a group fitness instructor. He had a personal training background. And, I was a fit guy because I was lifting weights five days a week. I was passionate about it. I always, wanted to talk about this subject with him. And he told me, like, dude, you'd probably be great at this. You're clearly passionate. Yeah. You know more than some personal trainers. Why don't you give it a shot? I said, how do I start? Well, go get licensed. And he hooked me up with a, boutique fitness, like boutique fitness studio. So I started teaching group classes for them. I went on audition. I was teaching group classes for them. And that was my first job in the personal training. I started with group fitness. And from there, guys would always approaching me, ask me, how do I get bigger shoulders? I was 25 at the time. These like questions regarding the aesthetics. And I had one particular guy that was bugging me every single class. Dude, I want to work with you in person. At the time, there's a different certification that you need to work with people one-on-one. Okay. To be a group fitness instructor, it's a lot easier to get in. I'm like, dude, I don't have a license yet. It's like, I don't care. Just start training me. So I started going to his building, training this guy one-on-one. And then from there, it just took off. People, kept on reaching out without me doing any marketing. And I got a full book of client. Fast forward from there, a year later, I had a full book of client, and I quit group fitness, and I've been in personal training. So it's been about 10 years now. Yeah, 9 years.
That's awesome. I didn't know that story about you coming here, trying to figure out what you're going to do. That's really cool. So what made you, what was the opportunity that got you from Romania to come to the US? My
dad moved here in 2004. He initially came in for a job opportunity. He was supposed to be here for 6 months. But then from there, my sister was graduating. She was getting close to graduating high school, I believe. We needed money for college. It was 3 of us. I have 2 siblings. Money was good here for my dad, so for financial reasons, he stayed longer. Then my sister decided to move here and graduate high school from here and went to college, so she established herself here, and my mom would travel back and forth. And then my dream, I love Romania. I'm proud to be Romanian, but the culture didn't quite fit me so well. And I realized that pretty early in life. I always, imagined myself living here. From watching the movies, I always wanted to be here. And with my dad being here, my sister being here, it was kind of my life's goal to come here. And then after I went to college, I started my master's program. And after my first year of master's, I decided to move here. And I hated it first. I hated it for the first 3 to 4 years. It was rough. But then, things got better. I met my wife, got married. Fast forward, a couple of years, have 3 kids now. I've found a job that I love doing. And that's how I ended up in the US.
That's so awesome. Because I came from England, and England and America have a very similar culture, same language. I didn't appreciate what America offered until I'd been here a while, and then I realized how many people it is the American dream. They grow up in a different country, speaking a different language. America exports the culture. You dream about the opportunity, the American dream, and of course it's got harder. This isn't a podcast about finance and inflation and difficulties in life. It's the American dream has definitely got harder, but I think anyone that's born with a US passport have such a gift. And so many people don't even realize that. They talk about I'm oppressed and this and that. It's like, listen, do you know how many billions of people would almost kill and steal or whatever they got to do to get that American passport, and you're born with it, you know.
I couldn't agree more. Yeah.
The opportunity here is incredible.
It's amazing. Yeah.
The one thing I really like about you, Alex, is this: if you were that 25-year-old self and you looked like you know, jacked and in great shape, but you didn't have a family, you weren't working too much, and all you did is, you know, drink protein and work out and take naps. For me, as a 46-year-old professional who's trying to balance fitness and career and family, it's hard for me to really, like, I can't even compare. So one thing I do love about you is the fact that you do work hard, you do have 3 kids, you love jiu-jitsu, you're working all the time, and you're balancing everything. So I feel like you're the person to talk about how to get in shape for successful career people, entrepreneurs, people that are very busy and they don't have much time, but they do have a priority to stay in shape and be in shape. So you have to be efficient with your training. Yes. So I feel like that's probably I'm sure you train a lot of different people, but that's got to be a niche because that's the one you're living, is you're trying to balance all these things and still put your health first.
Yeah, so I kind of landed this niche, right? I mean, if you look at who can afford personal training, it's not a cheap service. It's usually, you know, people that do well in their careers, you know, busy professionals. So early on in my career, I was blessed to meet my wife, and my wife had a 2-year-old daughter at the time. So I kind of landed that similar lifestyle early on in my career, which made me understand the dynamics, you know, of family and put myself into my clients' shoes a little bit easier. Because I gotta tell you, like, as I was younger, I didn't really appreciate when people were talking about, you know, I'm lifting weights so I can move better or doing this. I'm like, what are you talking about? I couldn't even relate to that. I'm like, I'm lifting weights so I can look jacked, right? And then I got closer to my 30s and into my 30s, and I understood that, you know, different demands from life as you start having children and as your body starts to, like, break down and slow down a little bit. I started appreciating a little bit more, you know, having the ability to, you know, keep up with your kids, you know, keep up with a, you know, physically demanding career, have energy to, you know, have a hobby like jiu-jitsu. You know, these things add a lot of value to my life. But had I not been fit, I wouldn't be able to have this kind of life. And so with my clients too, I understand that, you know, the demands of their careers, and they're not going to make their life about fitness. It's the other way around. I always had to figure out a way to fit fitness into their life. And one of the biggest motivators, especially with parents, I would always fast forward. And I say, listen, you're at a fork right now. You have some decisions to make. You haven't been doing anything physical for the past 10 years. So we can argue that for the past 10 years, you've been slowly on a decline. You're at a point right now where if you decide to change things and start fitting 2 to 3 hours of resistance training into your week and maybe 1 hour of cardio, could change the course of your life in a significant way. Let's fast forward 20 years from now. So I'd point both pictures. Let's say you're not going to do anything. In 20 years from now, you're probably going to be 15 to 20 pounds heavier than you are. You know, lower muscle mass, less strength. Your kids will be about this age. They'll be into this kind of activities. Will you be able to keep up with them? Maybe with your kids. How about your grandkids? Definitely not. Also, your kids move out. You're getting to your later stages of life. You know, this could be like what you do now is going to dictate if you're going to need assisted living at 70 or 90. It will add years of good quality of life, you know, to your life. That's, to me, that's something that you can put money on.
Exactly.
So painting this picture, because the biggest pushback that I would get from, like, potential clients, I don't have time for this. I don't have time for this. I get it. Life's busy. My life's busy too. You know, I have to wake up at 4 a.m. to fit everything into my life. But those 2 to 3 hours might not sound like a lot. You don't have to live like a bodybuilder 5 to 6 days a week. Although a lot of people have this, like, all or nothing mentality. Like, I can't be in the gym 5 days a week, you know, for an hour and a half. You don't have to do that. The resistance training has been associated with bodybuilding for many years, but I do like to see now that it's shifting a lot. It's shifting a lot towards, a lot more people like, you have Pintia, you have Huberman talking about the, longevity benefits, the quality of life, functionality benefits that are associated with lifting weights. It's such an important, if you could put this in a pill and sell it, that's it. You'd be the most successful person on the planet. The amount of benefits that you can get from it. So leaving that on the table doesn't make sense. You have to make the time for it. I had a conversation with a good friend of mine this past weekend, and he was telling me how his schedule is so chaotic and he can never fit it in. I said, listen, when you sit down on Sunday night after you put your kids to bed and look at your calendar, I'm sure there are some gaps. You need to put this in. The way you set up your meetings for your finance job, you need to put this into your calendar. It's a non-negotiation. Like you show up to yourself and get that workout done. That's key to being successful at staying consistent with lifting weights. I do that. Every Sunday, I'm looking at my schedule. My schedule looks a little bit different every week depending on when I have clients. But I have to put my workouts. I block them off. And look, I could be making money at that hour, but I have to be selfish enough to block that hour to myself. And no, this is my jiu-jitsu hour. This is my lifting hour, because I understand the benefits from them. And the price you pay for not taking this kind of action now is way too high, and I'm not willing to pay that price.
I love the way you said you're giving up the ability to make money to time block time for your health, because so many people focus on money, and money is something that, unless you're desperately trying to buy something right now, a lot of people, for them, money is security in their future, but really the best security is health. And I love the fact you mentioned the assisted living. Do you want to go in assisted living at 70 or at 90? My dad is 30 years older than me. I'm 46. He's 76. And every summer he does a 2 to 3 month hike across the Alps or the Pyrenees Mountains. And my mum's from the south of France. She has a little condo there. She'll wait for him there. He'll do his hiking, and then they'll have a few weeks off. Both retired. But it's like, so I've seen a 75-year-old, 74-year-old, 73-year-old every year do these things. So for me, I'm just like, that's the person I see that as normal. But now I have to say, okay, what do I have to do today so that I'll be that person? And I love the fact as well, you mentioned Peter Attia. There's one thing I remember him saying in his book: if you ideally want to do everything you can for your future self, whether it's a few hours of very slow state, easy cardio, it's lifting this many times a week. He broke it down. He's like, this is like 20 hours a week. That's like half a full-time job, right? A lot of people work 40 hours a week. So obviously a lot of people can't do that, but they can do something. And I guarantee you, anyone that tells you and me that they're too busy, do they watch any Netflix or any TV in the end of the night? Of course they do. Almost everybody does. So like, do you want to not work out and have 90 minutes to watch a movie at the end of the day? Or do you want to get your workout in and be healthy for the future? It's like, we have to make these trade-offs.
Exactly. And going back to Peter Attia and Huberman, the information that they put out there is amazing. However, I work directly with people, and I see what comes in through the gym's door, and I know what their schedules look like and what's realistic for somebody. And those podcasts can be a little bit overwhelming.
100%.
Because like you said, if you look at the whole morning routine, it takes 5 hours. Yeah. Nobody has that, right? No one has the 20 hours in the week to fit that in. So going back to, you're trying to fit these things to the lifestyle that you have today. And to simplify things, in order for you to get most of the benefits that come from resistance training and cardio, what you need, 99% of the people need 2 to 3 sessions, hour-long sessions, ideally, of resistance training. But if those sessions have to be 30 to 45 minutes, so be it. That's great. It's all you need to get 90% of the benefits that come from resistance training. And you need about 60 minutes. You can break that down into 2 30-minute sessions or 3 20-minute sessions of steady state cardio as a baseline. Get that done, and you'll be able to offset so many of the negative effects that come with aging. Anything over that, it's a great bonus if you can do it. and if we're talking about recovery protocols and stuff like that. But if you get this base done, this is it. You're pretty set. You're better off than 90% of the people.
So like in terms of, this is great. So in terms of a pyramid where at the bottom is the most important things that have the biggest payoff, and then as you go up the pyramid, it becomes, the payoff, the effort is more for the less payoff. So about that, the strength training at the bottom, and then we were talking a little bit about the steps that you're asking your clients to do. So that's, I guess that would be their low level cardio. Is that right?
Yeah. People, it's not necessarily even cardio.
It's movement.
Yeah, it's the amount of movement you get, because if we're gonna get to talk about a little bit about nutrition in a little bit, and gaining, losing, and maintaining body weight, the amount of movement you have in a day, that's gonna play an important factor, a role into that equation as well. But there is, I don't know which one would go first. I guess any kind of movement would be at the bottom of the pyramid. Then you'd go into resistance training.
Gotcha. Okay.
And then, the cardio and the things that they come after, in that order.
For the one thing that I really got from I think it was the Peter Attia podcast, is for the longest time, I always thought I was a runner. That was my first sport as a kid. I used to run the mile for my school, and I've always loved running. I've run marathons. I've done all this stuff. For me, I always thought running is exercising the most important muscle in my body, which is my heart. And then all my lifting, I was like, okay, it'll make me strong before it was MMA, now it's jiu-jitsu. It'll make me strong for my sport, and it was the vanity that I'll look a bit better at the beach with my shirt off, or for my wife. But it's only recently where I realized that no, as you get older, you naturally lose your muscle mass. So one of the most important things for your future self, for longevity, for living a active life in your elder years, is to lift weights now, so you have the muscle that's going to carry over, and you're going to, as you're losing muscle, you've got more to lose, so you're going to be better off.
Think of it like investing, right? You're putting money, you're adding on muscle now. Everybody's going to start losing it. Look at Arnold, right? Mr. Olympia many times. You look at him now, I mean, he looks fantastic I forgot how old he is. He's in his late 70s, something like that. He looks fantastic, but yeah, you are going to lose that. So when you're in, up to mid 40s, 50, you can still put on muscle. Use that. You add as much muscle as possible. Putting on muscle is hard. Your body kind of works against it. It's very expensive for your body to maintain muscle tissue. It's very expensive energy-wise. So you almost have to convince it that it's okay to do it. It takes a long time to add on muscle. Do it now when you're hormonally still in a place where you can add on tissue, because you are going to lose it. And the more you have, the better shape you're going to be in.
Yeah, I think my biggest thing is, so for the last 20 plus years, so when I was 24, I started boxing seriously, and I was fighting in the 178 weight class, so I had to be under 178. Then I switched to MMA, and I was doing 170, but I was cutting, so I was walking around in my mid 180s. Then I go to jiu-jitsu, I have to be about 188 for my weight class. So I've always been beholden to these weight classes. Then now, the last year I'm temporarily retired, enjoying life, but I'm still trying to find my ideal kind of balance between cardio, jiu-jitsu, lifting weights. And I feel like that weight is around perfect for me, around that 188, 190. So is that the case? Is there something I'm missing, Alex? I guess, does everyone have kind of a natural blend of their idea? Because obviously everything in life is trade-offs. So the more muscle that I'm putting on, the more my oxygen has to, and if I have a hard jiu-jitsu match, if I go put on 10, 15 pounds of muscle from where I am right now, obviously I'm going to lose some cardio benefits, right? So it's like I'm trying to find, for myself, I'm trying to balance two things. One is the optimum level now, where it's like the balance between my weight, my muscle mass, my cardio. And then I'm also at that age where I start thinking about longevity, and I want to be really focusing on muscle gain now for my future self. Does that make sense? So I'm trying to find those two, the balance between those two.
I will say this, I wouldn't worry about putting on too much muscle. Like I said earlier, it is so hard to do. And in order for you to put, like for reference, a bodybuilder in their prime years with, let's talk about a natural bodybuilder, maybe into their earlier years of their career. If they do everything right from a training standpoint. So they train for hypertrophy. All of their training is around building muscle. They stay consistently in a caloric surplus. The recovery is on point. Hormonally, they're in the right place as well. They may be putting about 5 pounds of muscle per year. But that's their main focus with their training for a year. Most of that year, they've been in a caloric surplus. So it takes a lot of work for you to, for somebody, you're 45, you're genetically pretty blessed, but even with that, for you to put on 15 pounds of muscle, it would require you to just focus specifically on that
for years and years.
It would take you a long time, and maybe some steroids.
Gotcha. Okay.
It's not as easy. It's almost impossible to build muscle accidentally. You'll put on a couple of pounds of muscle as a non-trained individual, which is not the case for you. But I wouldn't worry about that. And then what you do now with your training, I feel like you're doing jiu-jitsu. I know you're a runner. You run every week, and you're lifting. I think you reach that balance. That nice balance. When it comes to thinking about health, longevity, and if you feel comfortable competing in jiu-jitsu at this weight, which would be medium heavy.
Yep.
Yeah, I think this is a good balance for you. And another thing to look at. You pay attention, with where your body likes to be at, as far as the weight goes, and that changes with the years. But let's say you're not focusing on a specific, caloric intake or protein. You're not tracking any of that. You're just going about your day, eating your meals, and maybe you're someone that, by doing your regular things, you're somebody that's going to be at 188 to 200 to 190 year round. That's a good indicator that's where your body likes to be. You can manipulate that by going into losing weight, going into caloric deficit, or adding weight, going into a caloric surplus and staying there for a certain period of time. But if you were to do what you normally do and your weight kind of stays within 2 to 3 pounds, that's your baseline. That's where your body likes to be.
I'm so glad you said that point about it's not like I'm going to suddenly gain too much muscle and then be like, oh, I'm too heavy for my other activities. I think that's the biggest misconception with a lot of women who they might hear like, hey, if you lift weights, it's really good for your health. And they're worried they're going to suddenly work out, once or twice a week with someone like you. And then they're going to look like a female bodybuilder. It's like, no, that's not really the case. It's so hard to build muscle.
Yeah. And it's, that's been a myth that I feel like there's a lot, women, are a lot more educated now when it comes to that. But there's been a big effort all over social media, and most coaches, trying to convince women, hey, it's okay for you to lift. Actually, the toned look that you're looking for, you achieve that by, putting on a little bit of muscle tissue. Because if you just go about losing weight, but you don't have a lot of enough muscle tissue, you're not going to get that toned look. You're just going to look skinny, and you're going to be weak. So as an industry, we've made huge progress on that, but there still are, outliers that are afraid to pick up a 5-pound dumbbell thinking they're gonna look like Arnold, but I think that we're on the right path there. And
what's crazy, Alex, is I remember when I was as a teenager, big boxing fan, and I remember when, I think it was about 30 years ago, when Evander Holyfield went up from cruiserweight to heavyweight, and he got this trainer who was having him do a lot of weight training. And traditionally, among the boxers, the heavyweights would be natural heavyweights, and they would barely lift weights. And there was so many people were saying, oh, he's going to become muscle bound, it's going to be terrible. And then suddenly he goes from being cruiserweight champion to heavyweight champion. And that was the first time where people started to open their eyes in combat sports. That was like kind of very, very early days of MMA. I don't think MMA had even started yet. It's probably before the first UFC, where they're realizing there is a link to, it doesn't, doing resistance training for strength and putting on quality muscle is not going to impact you. And now it's like, there's I don't think there's a champion in MMA or boxing that doesn't do some type of strength and conditioning work.
In order to get into these combat sports, you're using your body. That's the hardware, right? You're constantly upgrading your hardware by hitting the weights, by getting your cardio. Like that's what you're doing. The better condition you're in from that standpoint, the lower your risk of injury is going to be. The lower your risk of injury, the harder and the longer your career is going to be. That you have to find that right balance, because you're going to have people that are going to overdo it.
Yeah.
So the approach is a little bit different when you work with athletes as opposed to general population clients. There are some similarities, because with the general population person that's overly stressed, they're going through a rough patch, they don't get enough sleep, and that's just what it is. Like somebody that just maybe had a baby not that long ago, they barely get. You're not gonna have them hit heavy rounds on the Airdyne, or hit PRs in the weight room. During that time, you have to manage the volume, manage the intensity, keep the consistency, and just get them through that rough time. And then when things are better from a recovery standpoint, that's when you can bump things up. Same goes for fighters. If you're going through if you're sparring really hard every day, the weight training is something that you're going to have to manipulate. You're not going to have somebody that sparred really, really hard and have them hit PRs that same day. I was working with Jose in the weight room, and he's an animal. He would go in and spar, I don't know how many rounds in a row, and then he would come in to train with me in the weight room, and I would look at him, I'm like, this guy can take it. If I put him into it, he'll do anything that I would say. My challenge was to convince him, hey, today we're not gonna go for that 325, 350 deadlift. You just did 10 hard rounds. But there are variables that you have to manage to avoid injury. There's a point of diminishing returns with training, obviously, as well.
And just people listening, Jose is a stud black belt instructor that we both train with, but he's also, I think he's mid-20s now, right? 24, 25?
Yeah, he's late. No, he's
late 20s?
Actually 30, I believe.
Okay, so late 20s.
Yeah.
So, but still, even an athlete like him who's in his late 20s is very different from an athlete in their late 30s, in their mid-40s,
100%.
So I guess the two different, I'd imagine, the two people that are coming to see you, you've got the Jose who wants, maybe he wants to look a little bit better with his shirt off, but primarily he probably wants to be more functional for competing in jiu-jitsu. So he just wants pure functionality from his training. And then you have, I'm sure, a lot of your other clients, they just want to look better and be healthier. So I guess between those two, what are some of the main differences and some of the main similarities, I guess, in what they should be doing? Because I'd imagine all of them are doing a lot of the same kind of thing, the same kind of resistance training and basic movements.
Right. So if I were to talk about their strength training program, to start that way, a lot of similarities. When you see athletes train in the weight room, if they're doing it right, what they do is gonna look very similar to what a general population client would do as far as the exercise selection goes. The intensity is gonna look different. When you have an athlete that you work with, they usually the learning curve is a little bit shorter with them. They catch on things a little bit faster. They're naturally going to be a little bit more athletic, so they're going to be able to do more as far as intensity goes and volume goes in the gym. But the structure is very similar. Mm-hmm. You still have somebody. If I were to write down a program for you today, I'd put you in 3 full body workouts per day. Your
per
set.
Week.
I'm sorry, not per day. Yeah, per week. Your sessions would look something like, you'd start your session first 5 to 10 minutes. You're doing your mobility work and your warm up, maybe a little bit of foam rolling. Then you'd go into your power work. So you can split that up into upper body, power based work, and lower body. So medicine ball throws, slams, box jumps, plyometrics when appropriate. And then you always want to put that power work at first, because that's the most neurologically taxing, and your neurological system is the first one that's going to fatigue, in a session. So you always want to do those when you're fresh. Then you'd go into your, the biggest block in the session would be your strength training portion. That would probably take about 40 minutes, right? And I'm not gonna get into program design per se. I'm just gonna stick to what a session would look like from a structure standpoint. So you do your strength block, which would be a full body session. That would contain mainly, if you're lifting 3 times a week, I wouldn't waste too much time on single joint movements and accessory work. I would just stick to, compound exercises. For lower body, you have your squats, your deadlifts that you can do, bilateral or unilateral. Then for upper body, you have your big pressing, vertical press, horizontal pressing movements, vertical and horizontal and vertical pulling as well. And then you have your core work. But I would mainly stick to, going back to, you only have 3 hours in the gym, use them wisely and get the most out of it, and do exercises that give you the most bang for the buck. Going back to that's why you would stick to mainly compound exercises. Because on a pulling exercise for back, for example, like on a lat pull down, your biceps also work. So if you only have that much time in the gym, maybe you shouldn't be doing bicep curls unless your goal is to specifically to build bigger arms. Same goes for triceps. If your triceps are going to be working anytime you press a movement, like press a weight, whether it's a chest press or shoulder press, your biceps are going to do work. A push-up. If your time is so limited, maybe don't do tricep extensions. Just focus on the big movements that target multiple muscle groups. And then I'll finish the workout with some sort of conditioning work. That's, the most efficient cardio machine, conditioning machine is the air bike. You can do intervals on that if appropriate. I wouldn't have a 65-year-old client do that maybe. But if appropriate, you can do intervals in that. You can do the skier, you can push the sled. I allocate about 10 minutes to finish with some sort of conditioning. That's more than zone 2 cardio. And then I would put, like I said earlier, at least an hour of maybe zone 2 cardio in the week. And that's it. That's how your week would look like. And you can have that for an athlete as well as for a general public client. Variables will change as far as sets, reps, volume. But the structure can look very much the same.
Oh, that's really great. So, Alex, you mentioned the big taxing things first because it's the most
neurologically demanding.
Yes. So for me, I don't know if it was you or one of the other trainers we do jiu-jitsu with. He was saying that I should be doing deadlifts before jiu-jitsu. Oh, it was you. So the reason here's, I guess, my question. And while this is specific to me, I'm sure it applies to other people too, where again, I'm balancing my daily schedule, my life and everything. So for me, if I use jiu-jitsu to get myself warmed up and everything's warm and then I'm still sweating, I just throw on a shirt and shorts and I go straight and I do my deadlifts right after while I'm still warm. So maybe my max strength is going to be more if I did it first because I'm obviously a little tired from, 5-6 rolls. But at the same time, I don't care so much as I'm not trying to do a PR on my weight. I'm just trying to get the basic strength training in for my life. So does that make sense? So is that bad to do it after? Because obviously I'm not going to have the same strength because I'm fatigued. But is it more of a risk of injury? Am I not getting as much adaptive benefits? Like what is? Do you see what I'm saying?
Those two things that you've mentioned at the end will be the bad things. Gotcha. It's not bad. If that's the only thing you can fit it in, I would just be very cautious when it comes to selecting the load, or if something doesn't feel quite right when you go into it. Because crazy things happen in a roll. There's no easy roll, as we all know. Intensity is pretty high. If your hips don't feel quite right, your back doesn't feel quite right, I would think twice. Maybe I would drop my intensity a little bit that day. Is it optimal to do it that way? No. But if you're telling me that that's the only time you can get deadlifts in, go ahead and do it. But yeah, you're not going to hit PRs. And your progress on that specific lift is going to be a little bit suboptimal.
I have been talking to quite a few people we train with. So these are jiu-jitsu guys who are doing between 2 and 5 jiu-jitsu sessions a week, and they're always trying to balance in lifting weights as well, especially as they get older and they're hearing about the benefits of avoiding the natural muscle loss as you get older. And they're trying to figure out, do they, like, ideally, if I had an easy schedule and I could do it, ideally, would I do it on a different day? I would do my lifting on a different day.
Yes, or if you were to do it in the same day, I would lift first, then do jiu-jitsu.
Gotcha. And can I go straight from one to the other just for the sake of my schedule?
Yes.
Or yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. If I were to do it that way, and look, Jose and I tested that a couple of times, because we were trading services. So we were doing one-on-one jiu-jitsu, and then I was training him in the gym. So we did it both ways, where I was in the gym with him in the weight room first, and then we'd go to jiu-jitsu. he was always like 10 to 15% better. And when we would have a jiu-jitsu private where we would finish with sparring every single time and then go to the weight room, you could see the difference in performance. And the risk of injury is a little bit higher because even from a mental and focus perspective, if you spar 4 to 5 rounds, your focus is not going to be, you're not going to be as sharp. And on a complex, Olympic lift like deadlifts where so many things can go wrong and you can hurt your back, that's where, that doesn't sit so well with me when it comes to like injury prevention. So you would be better off to go in if you had the time. Go through a little bit of a warm-up, do like 3 warm-up sets for deadlifts and a couple of build-up sets. That'll take you all in all probably 20 minutes or so, and then go ahead and do jiu-jitsu. And after jiu-jitsu, you're done.
Okay.
It'd be more optimal that way. You can get away with it most days. There's gonna be that one day where you're gonna be stressed out, you're tired from jiu-jitsu, but you wanna get your deadlifts in, you're rushing through it, snap.
Gotcha.
You're gonna get a back injury.
That's so funny because I completely agree with what you're saying. I guess I was looking at it from the other side where I feel like the injury for me, the injury risk is bigger in jiu-jitsu because it's so many unknown weird positions you can get yourself into. So I was worried about doing it before and then I'm kind of fatigued and then I get an injury during rolling. So that was what completely agree with what you're saying, but I was just always thinking about it like that, kind of flipping it.
Yeah. I don't know. Yeah, that's a good point that you brought up. Yeah, the way I see it, I think, I mean, the risk of injury in jiu-jitsu is a little bit different because now you have an external thing.
Exactly, it's not you.
It's not you, but that could happen, if you were to get injured that way, because you didn't tap on time or you're going against a really strong opponent, the dynamic in jiu-jitsu, if you're going to get that injury, you're going to get it whether you did deadlifts before or not. I feel like. Yeah. But when you go to the barbell, it's just you and the barbell.
Yeah.
You control that weight, so that you don't have that external factor. I feel like it still benefit you more to do the lift first than do jiu-jitsu. But ideally, put them in separate days.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah. The other thing I've been trying to do more, and listen, I'm lucky, I know not everyone's like me. I have a gym in my basement, but I'll do stuff like maybe it's a running day for me and I want to run 4 to 8 miles in the evening or in the afternoon, but I've got a busy day and I'm not a morning person. So I'll get up, I'll jump in my ice plunge just to kind of shock the system. And then I'll just do something like, 50 pull-ups, 6 sets of 8 or something, whatever it's going to be, however I break it down. But I just do something small and then I'll have my morning shake and start my day. So I'm just trying to get a little bit in then, do my ice plunge to wake up, get some arms and back with my pull-ups, have my breakfast, do my work, and then do my main cardio session later. So I'm always trying to or like my son's wants to play in the basement, his playroom's down there, but he's kind of off doing his own thing, and I'm like, I'm gonna do some biceps and triceps, for the beach, just so I'm trying to do like those, and that's what I call, I guess, low intensity, right? I'm just trying to get movement in, I guess if you look at what I do on a week, is doing that a couple of times with all the other stuff. I call that's almost like bonus workouts. I don't even consider them workouts. But it is still putting stress on my body. Then am I at a risk of overtraining because I'm trying to do all that, or do you think because it's small and it's almost like just walking a mile or 2 when I could drive? I consider it very low, intensity.
Right. Well, let me ask you this: how many times a week do you have like scheduled workout sessions in the weight room? If you do, or is most of your lifting?
3. I would say 3 times a week.
And you're doing jiu-jitsu how many times?
3 to 4.
Okay. And then here and there
and I run 3 times a week.
And then here and there you're doing a couple sets of pull-ups.
Yeah, exactly.
It should be fine.
Okay.
And then kind of listen to your body a little bit and see what feedback you get. If you're not exhausted and dying the majority of the week, and then that's fine. If that doesn't cause any joint pain and you can take it, great. Yeah, then I don't think that's too much.
Okay.
You're experienced enough, especially in jiu-jitsu, where you know how to kind of manage your volume and intensity in there. But But yeah, if you're not feeling miserable afterwards, and you don't see like any of the diminishing returns, and that's fine.
Okay,
that's fine. Go ahead. And
so for your more experienced people you've been working with, or the ones you've been, I know you got that one client who I always see you go up to 4 or 5 on the deadlifts, and I love watching you train him because you're so efficient. I see you bang it out, you do this, you do that, you get some deadlifts in. It looks like he's a busy professional and he's trying to really be efficient with his time. So one of the reasons that I started deadlifting actually was because I kept getting these lower back tweaks from jiu-jitsu, like I'd explode out of things, or I'd try and defend a triangle by posturing up and I'd get out of the triangle and then hurt my back. But it was always like minor stuff. They'll hurt for a week or two and then it would go away. And since I've been consistently deadlifting, which is probably 2 to 3 years, touch wood, I haven't had one of those injuries. So it's been very beneficial. I don't wear a belt. I try and work and conform. It's been really good for that injury prevention. But in terms of just like for me, for instance, I've been training a long time. I kind of have, if I'm not competing naturally gives you kind of a cycle, right? You're kind of competing towards something. But for people that aren't competing and they're just trying to be healthy year-round training, do you believe in training blocks? Like, maybe I do deadlifts every week for 12 weeks and then I have a few weeks off where I do a bunch of, I don't know, swings or something for a month. I completely give it a break from deadlifts. Then I go back and start again and try to go to a heavier, at the end of the next 12 weeks, try and go to a heavier block. So I'm trying to look at it almost like the professional athlete has the year season and they do different things to build up to an event. I'm not building up to any events, but I'm just wondering about your thoughts on kind of periodization for the obviously you're always going to have a year plan for an athlete who's competing, but for everyday people trying to just be the best selves, you're competing, so I guess you're a bad example, but you're like me in the sense that we're trying to make this part of our lifestyle. Do you believe in kind of having those training blocks and change things like that?
Yes, and the way you start with that. So let's say if I get a new client, general population client, not necessarily an athlete, we put things in and out of the program, but there are movement patterns that you pattern blocks that you pick exercises from. So take an exercise. Let's talk about lower body training, where deadlifts would fall in. When you have lower body training, you split that into 2 main categories, which is going to be hip dominant exercises, which is the deadlift would be one of those, the main, and then you have knee dominant exercises, which are your squatting pattern. With your hip dominant exercises, you're going to be targeting more of the hamstring, the glute, so the back of your legs. With the knee dominant exercises, it's going to be more of a quadriceps, quads, the front of your legs. And then you can break that down even further between bilateral and unilateral. So you can do a bilateral, it's like a regular barbell squat. Unilateral is any sort of split squat. Same thing with the deadlift. Now the deadlift has different variations. It's a hip hinge exercise. Well, most people don't know how to hip hinge properly. So I would teach them how to hip hinge. So they would just do like a straight leg deadlift for their first, or I would have them learn a kettlebell deadlift at first.
Kettlebell.
Yeah, they would do that for the first 4 weeks, And within those four weeks, I would manipulate variables like reps and sets. So they would start week 1 and 2 at 2 sets of 8, week 3 and 4, maybe 3 sets of 10. And then at the end of that month, they can master the kettlebell deadlift. Then we're gonna progress towards a more complex hip hinge exercise. Let's fast forward to the king would be the straight bar deadlifts, right? So we use all the progressions to the straight bar deadlifts. At that point, you're like, probably what your question was, like, where do I go from there as far as exercise selection? Let's say you've been doing straight bar deadlifts for the past 4 to 6 weeks, and you kind of maxed out, how much weight you can use. You rinse and repeat. You go down the ladder to, breaking down that movement back to like a straight leg deadlift, which is just the hip hinging portion of the lift. Get stronger in that range and go back up the ladder, but this time around a little bit heavier than you did the first time. So that's how I would break it down. So I always rinse and repeat, with the barbell deadlift being the most complex hip hinging exercise. But leading up to it, you have, like I said, the kettlebell deadlift. Then you have the straight leg deadlift. Then you have the trap bar deadlift. Then you have the Olympic deadlift off of blocks, so elevated a little bit. Then you start removing blocks until you get to deadlift off the floor, right, which is the most complex one. Once I spent a couple of weeks, and for somebody that's newer, to get to a deadlift off the floor, if they get to that, because it's not for everybody, it could take 6 months, easy.
Yeah.
And then once you get to it and you master it, when you get to the point where I can't lift any heavier and my back starts to kind of hurt because I've been deadlifting like crazy, I'll go back to maybe kettlebell deadlifts. So kind of deload those muscles a little bit and then work back up the ladder. But this time around, heavier on each one. And then when you get back to your deadlifting off the floor, you should expect to be a little bit stronger. This time around, you also don't spend so much time. Maybe you're doing 2 weeks kettlebell deadlifts, then the next 2 weeks you're doing straight leg deadlifts. And then you go to trap bar deadlift maybe for 4 weeks. So that period can be shorter because now you kind of mastered the execution of all of those exercises. So that's how I approach it.
I love that. Yeah, it's like one mountaintop and then you go back down, then a higher mountaintop.
That's it.
Down.
Yeah, because otherwise you get stuck. Whenever, in the gym, you're trying to avoid plateaus.
Yeah,
and part of the reason people hire me is, certain people, is because they hit a plateau and they don't know where to go. And my job is to go in and figure out ways to progress their training. And that's where you start using periodization, so you can continue to push forward. But sometimes you got to take a step back so you can move forward.
Can you, real briefly, I feel like deadlift is such a key movement for health. And I've heard so many people talk about, 50-year-old women, 60-year-old women should be deadlifting. The guy, the knees over toes guy was having his mum, I think his mum was deadlifting and she's, in her 70s or something. What is the difference between straight bar and trap bar for most people? So I think you told me, I think you saw me deadlifting with a straight bar and you know that my hips and everything are so tight from running, life, driving, jiu-jitsu, all the things I do. You're like, I think you should probably move to a trap bar because it will be easier on your body. And I found that it was. I feel like I feel like I'm getting the strength benefits without it being so taxing on my hips. So is that like for, a lot of people listening to this are probably going to be more like our age that are also doing jiu-jitsu. They're not trying to be, powerlifters. Yeah. Is the trap bar just a safer, easier thing for people that are middle-aged with tight hips?
Yeah. And it's not even rocket science. It's pretty simple. That just for the fact that you don't have the bar hitting your shin. So if you're somebody, like you said, if you have a desk job, you have tight hamstrings, tight hips, if you're sitting down for long periods of time, you might not have the flexibility and mobility to deadlift off the floor. Matter of fact, I think 90% of the general public don't have the mobility to deadlift off the floor. I'm right there. I'm almost not able to do it. I'm like struggling a little bit with it, especially for long guys too. So the trap bar does two things. You have the handles that are elevated a little bit, so you don't need to. You can still deadlift even though you don't have the greatest mobility, because now you don't have to go that low, and also you don't have the bar hitting your shins. When you have the bar hitting your shins and your hips don't go back far enough, your body's gonna find a way to. You're still gonna find a way to grab that bar, but the way you're gonna do that is by rounding your spine. So now you're gonna pick up the weight with the flexed spine. Increases the risk of injury significantly, and not just that, you're not targeting the muscles that you're supposed to be targeting in a deadlift. Yeah. Now you're not. Now you're lifting it with your back,
not your hips and legs,
glutes and hamstrings.
Gotcha.
So it's not fitting the person to the exercise. It's fitting the exercise to the person. So we can, as a trainer, like I always have to find ways. If somebody can do a split squat, like a unilateral squat, because they don't have the balance, use a stick. Give them a little stick that they can hold on to until they're able to do it without it, to regain their balance. Same thing with deadlifts, squats. You see those safety bar on the squat. Some people don't have the mobility to grab the bar for a back squat. They invented those safety bar squats where the handles are here. You can still barbell squat, but you're holding it right here. So you manipulate exercises to fit your structure, your mobility, and your experience. And there's no we're not meatheads. No one's gonna tell you, yeah, you're deadlifting 405, but you're doing it with a trap bar, so you're cheating. No one cares, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
You know, you're trying to stay healthy, get strong, manipulate and adjust the exercises so they can fit your structure and your experience. Yeah.
I've heard bench press gets a bad rap among people, but I think for jiu-jitsu especially, there's so many times where there's a point where you're about to get from a neutral position like the guard into he's going to pass or you're going to be in a really bad position on the bottom, and there's a lot of legitimate jiu-jitsu defense movements that's almost like a one-arm or two-arm bench press to get spaced, you know, to get your hips back. So I think bench press, just basic bench press, is actually really useful exercise for jiu-jitsu. Do you have some thoughts on that?
Yes, yeah, 100%. And I'm not sure why the bench press. It's one of the main lifts. It's you know, it translates into your real life as well. Like talking about getting older, you're pushing the shopping cart at the mall. Like you have to have the ability to press from like an horizontal position, and that's what the bench press is. It's one of the main upper body exercises, so it shouldn't have a bad rep if it's executed correctly.
Right.
And for jiu-jitsu, it's probably one of the exercises that will give you the most bang for the buck. Like you said, when it comes to framing, it's vital. It's vital to train the bench press, you know, work different tempos, slow eccentrics, explosive isometrics from that horizontal pressing plane. It's definitely, it should not get a bad rep. It's one of the most useful exercises, I think, for jiu-jitsu, and not just for jiu-jitsu. For that reason, you know, football players, it's one of their main lifts. Olympic lifters, it's a staple, and it shouldn't get a bad rep if executed correctly, and if you do it in a well-balanced program where you work your pressing exercises and your pulling exercises for upper body. You have to have a good ratio so you can avoid shoulder injuries. The industry has always been saying, you know, it should be 60-40, 60% pulling, 40% pressing. I think it should be 50-50. And it's what I've been seeing to work really well for even for athletes and for my general population clients. And that's what I do for my training too.
Awesome. We kind of touched on nutrition. You touched on a little bit, but it's such a, obviously, it'll be, you know, we could do 10 podcasts just on nutrition alone. But in terms of what you're telling people, I'll never forget a buddy of mine came up to me many years ago when it was kind of like a newer thing when people would go and get Starbucks and they'd get those fruity shakes, fruity coffee drinks, and it was some iced maca, whatever, 1,000-calorie drinks. And he's like, bro, have a bit of this. And I had some, like, that is literally a frozen dessert. It was so delicious. And he's like, yeah, it's amazing. And then you see it's 1,000 calories. And I always joke, I'm like, man, if you burn 1,000 calories in a workout, that's a crazy hard workout. You are dripping with sweat, you're exhausted. But you can drink 1,000-calorie frappuccino like nothing, you know, a few sips, you know, 5 minutes, 2 minutes. And so I feel like it's so much easier to work out a little bit and have a strict diet. I think you're going to look great. Whereas if you work out like absolute crazy and are pretty bad with your diet, I think it's almost impossible to outwork a bad diet.
It's impossible. Yeah, it's impossible. It's not sustainable. Like you said, especially, you know, when it's so easy to take calories in, right? And as you can see, like in the US, we're having a big issue with, you know, people eating too much, not too little. But when it comes to training, like in a normal strength training session, I burn around 300 calories, right? That's a protein bar.
Yeah.
So it's not, you can see how it's not sustainable. Even if you're a big runner, it's still really hard to outwork a bad diet. It cannot be done sustainably, which is why, you know, we have now these trackers. You have the Apple Watch and the Whoop bands, and well, first of all, they tend to grossly overestimate how many calories you burnt in a workout. But I feel like not so much anymore, but for a long time when these devices were a little bit newer, people were going crazy about it. I burned 1,000 calories. And now so I can go and eat a pizza that's 1,500 calories. Like, what are you doing?
It doesn't work like that, yeah.
It doesn't work like that. No, and I tell people when it comes to, you know, if I have a client that comes in with body composition goals, tell them from the start, well, no matter what kind of workouts we're going to be doing, is that some people ask me, so what are the workouts going to be? I'm like, well, let's talk about the nutrition aspect, because if you're a weight loss client, this is going to be very much nutrition based. So we're going to regulate your body composition. That's going to be mainly, and the weight loss mainly from taking care of your nutrition. And then we're going to use your training next to the nutrition to get you stronger, more functional, feel better, get you in better shape and fitter. Also, you'll have what your body does with the calories. If you're a trained or an untrained individual, it's going to be a little bit different, because if you've lifted weights and you go and have a regular meal of like 500 to 700 calories, you're eating your carbohydrates and whatnot. What your body's going to do with those nutrients is different if you've just finished your training session. All of your, a lot of your glycogen, your carbohydrates are going to be taken up by your muscle tissue, not by your fat tissue. Your protein is going to be used for, restoring that tissue that you damaged throughout the session. So that's how those, body composition change. You see body composition in people, changes in people, even though they're in a caloric maintenance, and they just pick up lifting. If they're a non-trained individual, their weight might actually go up a little bit, but their body composition, if you were to do a DEXA scan, will improve. They're going to have more muscle mass, and body fat percentage is going to go down.
I think that's what's when people are so fixated on weight, for me, it's so crazy. Like the latest with the Ozempic thing, where there's some $1 billion lawsuit, that doesn't surprise me. There's no free lunch, but I feel like people were so excited about Ozempic because they felt like they're losing weight, but they're also losing muscle mass, losing bone density, losing all these crazy things. So for me, it's never been about the weight. The only reason I've been so fixated on weight is because I'm competing in things that I have a weight class, so I have to weigh in. But in terms of weight for health, it should always be how you look and how you feel and how you perform, not just the number on a scale.
Well, and look, maybe it's harder for us to speak because we've been relatively fit throughout our entire lives. But there are people that are dealing with major weight issues. You have somebody that's 60, 70, 100 pounds overweight. That's when, I'm not a doctor, so I can't give any advice on Ozempic, but I have seen it be helpful for somebody that's morbidly obese. I feel like at that point, the side effects that come from these medications should be the least of your concern. Your number one concern is to drop the weight. So in a situation like that, and if you've tried everything or anything that you've tried failed, maybe that's a good idea for you to use it. But then on the other side of the spectrum, you'll have people that want to lose 5 pounds so they can look good at the beach and they get on Ozempic. That's not. I'm against that. When it comes to muscle loss, you can mitigate part of that. So there's the right way to go on a protocol like that. If you're somebody that's been dealing with obesity, and you have to resistance train to maintain that muscle tissue. Even though you're on one of these medications, you still have to watch what you eat. Your protein intake has to be high so you can prevent that muscle loss. So it's not a big mistake that people make. They go on the medication and they just don't pay any attention, and their appetite is suppressed. And now they're going into a severe caloric deficit, which is when you're starting to burn through a lot of muscle tissue as well. But the right way to do it is you get on it. It can be a fantastic tool for some people because it kind of silences the food noise. That some people are having a harder time dealing with that. So it silences that, but you still have to make sure that you're not creating too much damage in the process, and maintaining, holding on to your muscle tissue. And so resistance. Take it, but resistance training, a good, healthy diet, and high protein.
I'm so glad you said that, because you're right. If the effects of being morbidly obese are a lot less than the negative effects from Ozempic, of course, on balance, it'll be better to take that. So again, that's a great example of everything is not black and white. It's all nuanced and different shades of gray.
Which is why they came out with this medication. They started using it with diabetic and obese patients. And I think it's valuable for that. Help people get to a healthy weight, and then maybe have a protocol where you get them off of it if possible. But with the early studies and early cases, you saw a significant muscle loss, which we want to mitigate that.
For sure.
Yeah.
Well, Alex, I'd love to end kind of you talking a little bit about your TRT story, because I know a lot of people talking about it. They don't know much about it. They're in our kind of age where people are starting to get on it. Of course, there's people in jiu-jitsu that are abusing it. Some of the master categories, people are out of control. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so with this, again, I'm not a doctor, so don't take my word for it. I can just speak about my experience with it. So being in my early 30s at the time, I couldn't explain why I just couldn't get through my days. I was lethargic, brain fog, a little bit of depression was setting in. I was finding it really, really hard to get through my basic time. I remember I was training my morning clients. I did 3 to 4 clients and I had to take a nap. I just couldn't get through my day. So that, the sex drive, everything was kind of just plummeting. And I'm like, this is not right. And that, along with, at the time, my wife and I were, thinking about having kids. So we went through like the fertility, the checkups. And I went to the urologist and they drew my blood. And I was like, yeah, your testosterone is very low. And the guy looked at me and was like, I would have never thought. Like my muscle, I still had a good amount of muscle and I was lean. I was in shape. I was working really hard at it though. Your testosterone is low. So he did a more, I'm not going to get into details, but I asked what could be the reason. He's like, well, your lifestyle seems to be in check. You're sleeping well, you're eating well, you're training, like you're doing all the right things. It could be genetic or it could be environmental factors. I don't know how much. The fact that I guess I grew up like 600 kilometers from Chernobyl.
You did?
Yeah.
Wow, okay.
I don't know how much that affected or whatnot. I still don't know why. But it diagnosed me with low testosterone. So that's when I started exploring, what can be done. This sucks. I don't want to live like this. It's affecting my marriage. It's affecting my work. It's affecting
your happiness.
My happiness.
Yep.
That's it. And but at the time we still wanted to get pregnant, so he put me on the treatment. It was not traditional TRT. It was like making my body make its own testosterone, but that was not a long-term solution. And then after 2 kids later, I talked to the doctor again. And he said, well, if you're going to be doing this for life at this point, the sustainable way to do it is to get on traditional TRT. And it changed my life. Now I'm able to wake up at 4 a.m., go through 10 clients, do jiu-jitsu at noon, and come home and play with my kids. And I'm still tired at the end of the day, but I can get through it, and it's fine. I'm happier. My mental health is in a much better place. It had a tremendous effect for me, and I'm so happy I started it, because I was in a really dark place right before I'd never want to go back there. Which is why for me making the decision to I'm just put me on whatever and I want to be on this for the rest of my life was easy, because I never want to go back to that place where I was before treatment. But you have to do it right. You have to do it under doctor's supervision, and you have to, in my opinion, take the least most effective dose where it keeps you in normal physiological levels. A bodybuilder, for reference, takes 10 to 15 times more the dose I take. And again, that's why they dropped that at 40 with heart attacks. But I think, again, from my experience, tremendous benefits. I feel like it gave me a second shot at life, and I couldn't be happier that I started it. And I probably would have started it anyway at some point in life, because the way I view it, testosterone, you need it. However you're gonna get it. Will you get to a point where naturally you're gonna stop producing it? Okay, but now we can take it exogenously, and they've been doing it since the 70s. I've talked to multiple urologists about it. Most of them were on it. So it seems to be pretty safe, easier to make, pretty cost efficient. So why not? If it improves your life by so much, why not? And now you start seeing it, with women. doing hormone replacement therapy, HRT, because their ability to produce estrogen, progesterone starts to drop into their mid 40s. It just increases the quality of life. So why not?
Yeah, it's so interesting. I feel like when I look back at my youth, you did not see women in their 50s that are actually absolutely beautiful. You do not see men in their 40s and 50s who just look absolutely incredible. So as an average, the population has got more unhealthy and more obese in the US. But then you also have this, on the other side of the coin, you have all these people on the longevity side that they're doing things properly and they just look incredible. And peptides is a big thing where I've been taking a couple of peptides, BPC 157 for injuries, and there's another one for sleep and I think natural human growth hormone release. And I've been seeing a longevity doctor the last 3 or 4 years. And he's always saying, well, with your levels, I could get you on TRT, but we're trying for more kids. So he's like, just hold off until then. So I don't want to mess with it until then. But I'm the same as you, where I want to maximize science to live the best life for as many decades as I can. And I'm really glad you said that thing about you're taking a 15th of what a bodybuilder who's maybe abusing it is. But in a lot of people's mind, they'll conflate the same thing. Like, oh, I don't want to do that because of the risk. But it's like, well, it's the dose is in the poison, right?
Yeah.
If you get up and you have a double shot of espresso and live a really healthy day, that's fine. But if you have 15 times that, which is 30 shots of espresso, you might have a heart attack. It's all about the dose.
Right. And, I know there's a stigma attached to it at the moment to TRT. I think that's going to be short-lived because more people are, it's a tool at the end of the day.
Exactly.
It's just a tool. And I think more people are going to discover the benefits of it. I do believe that you should postpone the start of treatment if you're ever going to consider it as much as possible. Some people are more gifted by Mother Nature. They have high testosterone well into their 60s.
Yeah.
I would never touch TRT if my testosterone was in normal levels at that age. I would say optimal levels, not normal levels. Because if you look at the charts, so in the US, so the normal levels are between like 300 and 1,000. So it's like but at 300, you feel like crap.
Yeah.
So optimal levels. If you're naturally there, I don't see a reason to do it. I wasn't there. I wasn't gifted like that. I had to, figure out something so I can, live a fulfilling, happy life.
Yeah. No, I love that.
And I'm not ashamed to, to admit it or.
No, that's one of the reasons I really wanted to talk about it, is just because I think you're right. I think there is a little tiny bit of a stigma, but I think it's a lot less today than it was maybe 5 years ago. There was that big controversy with Vitor Belfort that was on it in the UFC, and suddenly he looked like a superhero knocking everyone out with head kicks. And then when he came off it, his body just kind of deflated. But again, he was probably most likely had a shady doctor buddy in Brazil who was giving him, 8 times the recommended dose or something to get to that level. So
right. Because look, if I can pull up pictures before I got into TRT.
Yeah, you always look great.
I was in great shape, but then I will say it is easier now to maintain, but the same rules apply.
Yeah,
it's just I'm taking it so I can feel good and get through my days and live a happy life. I don't take it so I can put more weight on the bar. I can care less about that.
And I'm really glad you mentioned that, just how bad you feel. And you said, I never want to go in that dark place again, because I think everything that I'm interested in, the underlying thing is to be a happier person. So that's why I'm so focused on health, because I really think that there's no bedrock of success and happiness without having on the bottom of your life triangle, a fundamentally healthy lifestyle.
Right.
So,
yeah, couldn't agree more.
But I really appreciate the time. If anyone's listening to this and they want to see the best personal trainer in the Midwest, how do they get hold of you, Alex?
Well, they can find me on Instagram. It's Alex _ Pintia.
I'll tag you.
My website, levelupfitnesschicago.com. They can reach out to me there. But thank you so much for having me. I really enjoyed talking to you. Appreciate the invitation.
I appreciate you, Alex. Thank you, brother.
Thank you.